Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and today I'm going to talk to Diliana Deltcheva, who is the writer-director of the film Sweetheart. And hi, Diliana.
Hi.
All right, I got her talking already. I met Diliana at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2019, where Sweetheart wasn't just an official selection, but it actually won an award. It won your lead actor, Gina Vittori, won the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Lead. So that's cool. I love it when I get to brag about an award you won.
Me too.
And I'm also proud to say, you know what's funny? In the intro of this, I should say, and this podcast is all about talking to filmmakers, interviewing them whose work has been on the festival circuit. I'm a indie film festival programmer, and I'm proud to say that this podcast spawned a TV series, and Diliana's film Sweetheart is in the TV series. If you go to Amazon Prime Video and go to search for Discover Indie Film, if you go to Season 3, Episode 5, there's 2 fantastic films in that episode. It's an anthology of great short films handpicked from the festival circuit. And you can watch Sweetheart and Girlfriend. They play great together. They both have a great point of view. But before we jump into that and talk all about the TV series and stuff and Sweetheart, the idea here is to really get to know Diliana and what inspired you. So let me just hit you with that first question. When did you start getting inspired into going into filmmaking?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. It's very nice to talk film. I haven't talked to anybody about film in a long time. But yes, so when did that start? I guess when I was little. So I grew up in Bulgaria. I was born and raised there. I moved to the U.S. when I was 13. So I grew up watching a lot of movies and American movies, a lot of American movies on TV in Bulgaria, on my grandparents' little television, and a lot of music videos.
Were they dubbed? Dubbed or dubbed. Subtitles? Right, dubbed.
Actually, well, both, yes. So it's so funny because I think my love for filmmaking, for movies in general, just started then. It was a window out of my everyday normal life in Bulgaria. It was exciting. And deep down, I always dreamt of working in entertainment. I was a little entertainer when I was a kid. I danced, I acted, I was a ham. I'm the only child as well. So anything that I could do to just get attention and tell stories and get people involved. So that was something that was a part of my life from a very young age. And I always dreamt of moving to America to make movies. I did it before I even knew what that meant, that there was Los Angeles and that's where people made movies. So somehow that was just a dream of mine since I was a little girl. Didn't know how I was going to accomplish it. Didn't even know if that was ever ever going to happen for me. But, just the way that the mysteries of the universe work, somehow it all worked out. And my mother ended up getting a job in the U.S. Over 20 years ago now. And we moved to the U.S. It was actually in Missouri, not anywhere close to Los Angeles. But eventually I made my way to San Diego, where I went to film school, and then Los Angeles, where I've been living for the past 12 years and working in the entertainment industry. So I made my way here from Bulgaria.
Which is no simple task. And honestly, that's interesting because someone who was born and raised in Missouri, it's still a pretty big jump to move out to California.
It's wild. We couldn't even plan it. It's just the way things sort of unfolded in my mom's life, really. And then I just tagged along, and then I guess I should say I more consciously made an effort to go into filmmaking after, like, around high school, like end of high school and beginning of my college years. I met a few, I was living in Palm Desert at the time, actually, just another wild place that I never thought I would live, but I went to high school in Palm Desert, and I met a group of indie filmmakers in Palm Desert, and we sort of ended up, I fell in love with their love of filmmaking and got involved with some of their projects and took some acting classes, and just ended up getting really inspired to tell stories. Decided to try film out, go to film school. I went to San Diego State for film school. And at the time, this is 20 years ago, it was a small program. It's gotten much bigger and better now, but they sort of just gave us cameras and we're like, all right, go rent equipment and make movies. And that's how I got into actually trying out some of my ideas. And I loved pitching ideas, and I loved getting people on board for my projects. And it was always a really good time and very exciting. It's like an adrenaline rush to just make something. And so, yeah.
And the move to Palm Desert, was that with your mom, or was that?
That was with my mom. However, my mom and I ended up living our lives were sort of, they would come together and then move apart. My mom is a gymnastics coach, and she kind of had to, every few years, she had to move somewhere else to work at a different gym. So right around high school, she had to move to Northern California, and I had just made friends and learned how to speak English, and was living and started making friends and feeling a little bit more comfortable during that awkward age of, 15 to 17, 18. And my mom had to move, and she asked me if I wanted to stay. We were very lucky to have close friends of ours who offered to house me, essentially. And so I stayed in Palm Desert while she moved to Northern California. So I lived apart from my mom during high school. And then after that as well.
Which is very, I'm going to go ahead and call that really great parenting, that she saw that your needs for stability and to be part of that community made it worth it, finding a way for you to stay there, especially because you'd found artistic people.
Yeah, exactly. I was really thriving there. It was really important for me to sort of have that stability, like you said. And I sort of like put roots in the ground in Palm Desert and started creating a little creative environment for myself with all my friends and surrounding myself with the people that I enjoyed. So it was important.
Are there a couple short films from that era, from high school, that you would not want to show to anyone? But
there sure are, and I would not want to show anyone.
Fair enough.
Most experimental.
but you were already working with the camera and having fun with it, and so that's what made you for college, undergrad. You had a very clear film focus.
Yeah, and I would say actually before choosing a major in college, I thought about it because I was also a performance. I loved performing and acting and dancing and all that, and being in front of the camera. I had to take a moment there and think about, well, what do you really want to do? Do you want to perform, or do you want to tell the stories and be behind the camera? And had to make that decision. I decided to stay behind the camera. And that was a decision that it wasn't like okay, forever I'm going to do that. But I really wanted to learn how to tell stories from a more technical perspective. And I remember that being a big decision at that moment. And I feel like now looking back, I'm like, not such a big deal. Just, decide, do whatever your heart wants in that moment, and you'll find your way to whatever the other thing is that you were wondering about. but I did make a decision at that point to like, okay, let's learn how to produce. Let's learn how to write. Let's learn how to direct. Let's, learn all about sound and composing and all of these other elements that are filmmaking. It was important to me to do that.
Yeah. And it sounds like you found a natural aptitude for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so then and it sounds like a fun kind of film program for undergrad where everyone is working and everyone's, because you talked about getting people involved in your work. So, there's nothing. I always love hearing about the film school programs where everyone tries on every hat and everyone works with each other, and it's much less like there's people on a director's track and people on a producer's track and people on a cinematographer's track.
There were obviously those people too, somehow. And I admired that, people who were in a film program and thought, I'm going to be a cinematographer. I really, really admire that. Or people who knew that they wanted to be, usually it's cinematographers, directors are very much like, I want to direct. I think I just wanted to know more about everything and see in which direction I got pulled. And then I had to, what I did mostly in school was I would write my own films and I would produce them and direct them. But once school was over, I sort of was at the same question again, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to pursue, because in the real world, right? Like you could choose to be a director and call yourself a director and like go out there and direct. But also, for me at the time, I was like, but like, how am I going to make money? Which was a big question mark. And so I thought, this is after college, I thought, all right, but like producing, that feels like you're dealing with money, the ins and outs of filmmaking or making content. So that's got to get me a job that pays good money. And then if I know how to do that, then I can always continue writing and directing my own things. So that was sort of like the thought process behind me producing, because I do both now. I'm a producer and a director, and I do many different projects, different types of projects. And I still continue to wear different hats for different projects. And
upon graduation, you just said, okay, I'm loading up the car and I'm going up to LA, and you did the standard, like get your toehold in the industry of PA work, assistant work, office work. Because I always like to ask this because it inspires people, like, because some people have no idea that that's like a way in. Like, what was your way in?
Yeah. And everybody's way in is so different. Yes, I did. I moved here. I packed the car. I actually didn't move to LA right away after college. I stayed in San Diego for a little bit, maybe a year, maybe two. I forgot now. So you could even say that I moved to LA a little late. I was 26 when I moved to LA. And didn't have, late, I don't know. It felt late because, I felt like I wasn't just like right after college graduation, here I am, I moved here, and one thing is, so I supported myself through college with restaurant jobs. So I was in the service industry for a very, very long time, bartending, serving, all that. And I had decided that when I moved to LA, I will not do anymore. I will not rely on a restaurant job, no matter what. I just did not want to get hooked into that cycle of just making money and then being dependent on that money and not having the time to go out and actually put yourself out there and find other opportunities. So I did all sorts of, for about 6 months to 9 months, I did a ton of really odd Craigslist jobs. Because I had some contacts in the industry, but not enough, and not many that were directly going to give me an opportunity. So yes, I started doing production assistant work through word of mouth. I would just talk to people, get in touch, literally reach out to anybody who maybe I knew from school or I met somewhere, And I would just say like, I want a PA. In fact, I remember still living in San Diego before having moved to LA and driving down from San Diego to be a production assistant on some like awards show. Maybe it was like the Critics' Choice Awards or something like that. And sleeping on my friend's couch just to get, you know, in the rotation of this production company of like production assistants, you know, like, oh, if I did this, they would call me again. So I did a lot of that. And then I did some networking, which at the time looked like me going, hey, I'm just really looking to pick your brain about what kind of work you do and what your company does. And if you need any help, I'd like to learn more about blah, blah, blah. And I wish I could say I had more of a specific direction, but at the time it was a little bit of like, I don't know, talk to anybody and just tell them you need a job. And so I did my odd jobs. In the meantime, I networked, and then I met through a mutual friend, through a friend of mine introduced me to this guy who owns a company. He still does. And I had a little chat with him, and he was like, I think we may have something for you, but I don't know. 6 months passed. And then he ended up calling me and saying, we have an opening for an assistant. And I ended up becoming his assistant and his partner's assistant at their production company. So it took a good 9 months to almost a year to sort of figure out my footing and stop doing these really weird jobs, to get in a production company and start kind of managing calendars, and answering phone calls and doing errands and doing sort of whatever it is that you do as an assistant, but also you're in meetings listening to everything that they have to say, the projects that come into their shop, how they manage them, how they manage clients, just everything. And you just soak it up because you're eager, young, and excited, and you want to put in the hours. And that was the first job that got my foot in the door. And I ended up working at that company for 6 years and moving up from an assistant to a head producer there.
That's fantastic. I'm going to guess that being 26 instead of 21 was helpful in a way, because you brought I'm sure you brought a maturity that people who it's their first year out of school may not have had. I think you probably were a better hire for that reason.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think so. I think I was just a good fit because I was very flexible too. I wanted to learn, but yes, I had some just life experience under my belt, and that did help.
And you had the service industry era behind you, which is always good because I think people I worked in the service industry when I was younger. I think it gives a perspective and a humility that's very healthy.
I think everybody should work in the service industry for just a little bit of time, just to get a taste of what it's like. And everybody should take an acting class. Those are just the two things that I think everybody should, if they can, should just do, because you learn a lot about yourself.
All right. So this 6 years you're working at that, and by the way, bravo to them. They're some of the good people. They promoted you up, which you don't always hear about. Sometimes if someone's a good assistant, they're like, well, let's keep her as our assistant because it'd be too hard to replace her. So good on them for bringing you up through the system. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But were you writing your own stuff that whole time? I
was more or less. I mean, I went through many different ups and downs of, moments of inspiration, and others where it was just, I don't want to say a writing block, because it's not like I'm a novelist and I have a writing block, but I just went through periods of time where I was learning more about producing and sort of dove into that and didn't quite spend enough time, I guess, developing the ideas that were coming up for me. but that drive and that necessity to tell stories was always there. So there would just be, let's say I would get really, really busy, because working in a production company is insanely busy. You don't have a life outside of that. And so there would be periods of time where I would just be consumed by that. And I would start feeling after a little while like, oh, what am I doing? I need to express myself. I need to get these ideas out. And then I would find time and maybe do something. And then after a little period of, because it's not easy making your own stuff either. That's a ton of effort and money and everything. So after I would do that, then I would just be back to like, oh, I need a little break from pulling all these strings and fighting upstream to make this happen. And then I would get busy again. So it was just a roller coaster of ups and downs. But yeah, I've always had this need to just work on projects and express myself and get things moving again.
All right. So when did you, it was at the end of the 6 years that you started, I guess I'm fishing for the question of when did you start directing again? When did you decide?
Yeah, let me see here how it all worked out. I had a coworker, a really good friend of mine, actually. She's one of my best friends still. We met at the company, and she always really just pushed me to continue to be creative, even when there was not enough time for it. So she would always be like, all right, what are we doing this? Let's shoot this. Let's do that. She always saw this sparkle in my eye when I would talk about projects or ideas, and would hold me accountable. And I think that was a really important person in my life, that everybody should find that person that's there that could hold them accountable and like kind of nudge them when they get complacent. So it was during my time at the company is when I started to get back into it. So I would write, we would do little side projects together. The person
like like shorts?
Yeah, like shorts, like even shorts, like, like a 2-minute thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wouldn't have time, and it would be like, all right, bring your camera and we're going to do something experimental. We'll film it here and we'll try to put music to it and see how that works. Just anything to tell a story, within our means. Because I didn't always have the opportunity to like do something big, but, so she's an actress as well. So it worked out because we could bounce ideas. She could act in things. And then that's when it really started. And I had just a ton of ideas and a ton of projects the ball started rolling, and, eventually ended up leaving the company and realizing that I needed to prioritize directing and the creative side of my life a little bit more. And the full-time job just wasn't allowing enough time for that. So I went freelance. So I freelance produce now, but I also, because I made that decision, it opened up a lot more free time for me to work on projects like what you're talking about, like Sweetheart and other projects. And then the moment, you close one door, 10 other doors open. And that was really sort of the, what kickstarted my directing path. Restarted or relit it, or whatever would be the way to say it. Yeah.
And was Sweetheart one of the first ones, or were there a couple?
Sweetheart was one of the first ones that got me, like, I actually just like sat down and was like, this is what I want to do. Let me just focus and get it done.
Right. Because you wrote that, it's like a script you wrote and you said, hey, I can, was it also the producer in your head? Because you had a producer's mind.
Oh, it's
so you're
terrible.
Like, okay, all I need is a car and 2 actors, a car mount, and I'm good to go. Like, was that?
Yeah, honestly, it's almost, I don't know if it's helpful to be a producer and a director, / writer, or not, because it's just like an angel and a devil on each one of my shoulders, and they're constantly fighting. It's the producer's just like, don't write that scene. You don't need to go find a restaurant. Like, that's just going to be so much money and effort. And then the director, the creative side of you is just like, it'd be so much better if we did this. And yeah. So yes, that was one of the first projects that I was like, I want to do something a little bit bigger. I want to work with actors. I want to do something. The car side of it didn't come until later, but I really wanted to do something different that wasn't just in a room or whatnot, you know? But it took about a year after I wrote the script to actually do it. It's just a long,
because you have a career, because you were busy. I assume you weren't sitting there for a year completely devoted to getting Sweetheart in front of the camera. You were doing a lot.
Correct. Because I always have, a ton of stuff going at the same time. And it's really the name of the game is find the things that matter to you the most and prioritize them. And that's really, really hard to do.
Especially in the real world where there's expenses to life and all kinds of things, for sure. All right. So what tipped it? What made it happen? There must have been a moment where you're like, hey, Sweetheart's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, my husband and I are he's also a filmmaker, and that also helps because we can talk about things and push each other. But I was just like, we got to start making stuff, we can't just keep waiting around for, I don't know, the best moment or for somebody else to approve of our ideas or whatever. We financed Sweetheart ourselves, we made it with our own money. And that's one of the things that, you, at the beginning of your career, you're just like, but how, like, who's going to pay for this? Right. Cause it's not like a little bit of money. It's, you have to figure out the whole finance side of it. And you can raise money, you can finance it yourself, you can do like a ton of stuff. There's so many options, but you got to figure that out and not let it hold you back. And at the time, I think we were like, should we just do it? Like, let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's put our own money into it. And let's see how it goes, what we learn from it, and how we can expand. We just have to one foot in front of the other,
And to be fair, I didn't mean to be sexist or whatever. Your husband co-wrote the script. He has co-writing credit.
He does. Yes, he does. And he,
and co-producer. You guys produced together.
Produced everything together.
Wrote together. You directed.
Yes. Yes. He is, very valuable to have because his background is in editing and music. So he is just, knowing what the end product is going to look like. It's just, from having somebody's mind who's like, oh, I know how things are going to edit and I know what you're going to need to tell the story, and having that in my corner, is invaluable. So yeah. And also having lots of conversations, because Sweetheart, the conception of it was happening around the Me Too movement, and all these conversations were happening all the time, everywhere in the media, and I'm sure in people's homes. And just being able to have this conversation with a guy and I thought was really helpful, and he challenged me on a lot of things.
Actually, so now that we're on Sweetheart, interestingly enough, in my notes, I watched it again, and I have to say, in my notes, I said, besides the other things I've always told you, which I suppose I should tell you again because it's been 2 years. But besides all the things about it that impressed me, I actually did note music and editing are so strong in it. The use of music is particularly great, I think. But before I even mentioned, so that was kind of a nod to your husband, Jack Gravina. But I wanted to add that the conversation you had, that could be why, because like one of the brilliant things, a genius thing about Sweetheart, and I guess we can do spoilers. I won't spoil it too much, but is that it's a woman. It's such a realistic situation, and you walk such a brilliant line between, is she in danger? Is this man helpful, or is this man dangerous? Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's so hard to know. And even when you've seen it a couple times, I still notice how fine that line is and how you can really not be sure, and what a god awful situation a young woman is in when a man of authority is offering assistance and you just can't know if he's going to be a danger.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and again, I'm sure women, not just women, I know men are always also are in dangerous situations, but women tend to be in more of them. They're more vulnerable in general. There's so many of those situations that I've been in, and to the point of where they just are so normal to me that I don't even notice them. And that was kind of the inspiration or the intention behind making Sweetheart. It's like, I don't want to make, and this is also conversations that my husband and I had a lot together, because he had obviously the male perspective going, but nothing really happens to her. Like, the guy doesn't like harm her. He's not that scary. And I'm like, you're right. That's exactly the confusing part of it for a lot of women is that you're in these situations that are mild, but you're getting taken advantage of, and you're not sure if you should stand up for yourself or you should be appreciative. And that was.
And men have to acknowledge being physically stronger than a woman makes her vulnerable throughout the entire interaction, right? Like right. I'm sure you were numb to, obviously you didn't even mention that working in the entertainment industry as a woman, you probably dealt with men who danced around the line between, inappropriate or appropriate flirting. Are they being friendly? Are they not? A nonstop barrage of just always being happy, always being forced to say, I'll give him a break. I'll let that slide.
Yep. And always also on the other side of it is wanting to be friendly, wanting to keep doors open, wanting to not be considered a bitch or you want everybody to like you. And when you get into these little situations with people who are also, you're trying to read them and you're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes you feel like, okay, maybe I'll go along with it because it's nice. You don't want to hurt egos, but then you're like, maybe did I go too far? Now I have to draw a line. Oh no, now I'm going to be a bitch. So it's not an easy dance to perform.
It is horribly unfair, actually. Maybe I'm biased because, I've got a teenage daughter now, but I think a lot of men are, thanks to Me Too, became aware because, besides, I was going to say in Sweetheart, well, again, people should watch it. It's on Amazon Prime Video. Watch it. But I mean, this gentleman apparently really wants a phone number. And that is also a scary prospect because you are giving someone, unless you whip out a fake number, which Lord knows I think happens a billion times a day in the city of Los Angeles, but that's personal.
Especially if they know where you live.
Yeah, that's actually, exactly. And
you're a little less likely.
Yes, a ride home is scary AF. In fact, your film, no, I guess Uber existed, but I mean, they're just not, Yeah,
Uber did exist at the time. I don't remember.
But I mean, she's faced with a gentleman who's presenting himself as an officer of the law.
Yeah.
And so when he offers a ride, there was a power. I mean, you created a power dynamic in your writing because she asked, just let me walk home. I can make it, it's a couple miles. I'll make it there in no time. And when he offers the ride, well, if you refuse the ride, are you going to get arrested for having bumped into his car? It was.
Yeah. And also he's just being nice. And in a moment, a split second, you're going like, this person is just being nice. Why am I so suspicious of it? You're just constantly thinking about, am I overthinking it? Am I being mean? Am I judging someone? And you're taking it on yourself.
Right. She wasn't overthinking it. I don't mean to interrupt, but
no.
The turnaround. When he says turn around, that wasn't walk a line, or that wasn't close your eyes and touch the tip of your nose. He was looking at her butt. It's pretty awful, actually, when you think about that.
And also just making you puppeteering, Yes. It's like,
exercising control over her.
Let's see what I could do here, and if you'll do it. Doesn't even have to be that. It's more about the fact that I can make you do that than the actual, And
you worked in Hollywood, so you probably dealt with that. And the truth is, people are all the time, and it actually isn't always a male-female thing. I certainly have known my share of Hollywood professionals who loved exercising power over younger men. Just because, you think can I get this kid to, who works in the office to drive, across the city for no reason to get me a taco that I could get across the street. Sometimes that's what it is.
Oh yeah. The entertainment industry is just it's the worst with that stuff.
It's an asshole magnet.
It's just the power dynamics are to the extreme.
It is. But your film, and that's what's great about Sweetheart. And it's why I wish, hell, if I would just, I'd want the activist soul I have would want everyone, I would want Sweetheart to be watched in high schools and then have the classroom discuss male-female dynamics and power dynamics, because you really do a very honest, believable portrayal of it.
Thank you so much. Actually, I thought about that. My husband's mom is an educator, and when she watched it, she said the same thing. She was like, you know what, you could actually screen this for students, because it doesn't show anything graphic, and yet there are so many things that go wrong. So it's a really good example of let's pause it here and, what could have happened differently here? Yeah. How could she have stood up for herself before getting to this moment here?
And what could he have done differently? Yeah. Both sides can learn from this. And, he sort of got, by the way, and you also have a really good sense of humor throughout, I think. Especially at the end, there's good humor, but men need to, especially, and actually I think younger men are much better. I think I've noticed, I'm in my 50s and the people I know who are millennials, I think they're better men than the guys I grew up with. I think they're more aware of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think people are changing, and younger generations just don't have that same upbringing that older generations had, where it was just built into their understanding of the world and, their identity of what a male is and a man is. And it's just, I still see men who just they don't actually get what they're doing wrong. It's just because it's just a part of who they are, and they're just not self-aware.
And it was completely, our media was completely drenched. You could, I grew up when I was growing up, Charlie's Angels was on TV.
Yeah.
and even though these women were, cops and had guns and it was just women as objects of men's fancy. And that was, and by the way, bravo on the writing. I know today I looked at the credits of your film and I saw that the officer whose name we never hear his name is Officer Bland, which is a great little stab at him. He's just a bland guy.
Just a bland guy.
Just your average white guy. I don't mean to be racist, but just your average bland white guy who when presented with a girl who's out of his league, tries to use whatever tools in his tool chest to try to make something happen that really shouldn't.
Yep. And we have a lot of discussions on, and even I talked to the actor, and I talked about this a lot. Is he bad? Is he good? You know, the actor made his own choices on what he thought. And I remember Andy, what's his name? Andy was like, I think I'm a good guy. Like, I think I'm a good guy. And it's just even funny to work with an actor who's like making a choice that he is good. He's coming from he wants to help her, but then he gets emotional, and then he just wants her number because he thinks they have a connection. So it's just funny that you can step into that side of it and justify his actions.
Well, I certainly think Andy Slade, your actor, he, at least his character, had to believe he's a good guy. In that moment, he clearly could have said to her, well, I'm actually not a cop. I'm a security guard, but I can help you out here.
Yeah.
But because he's not a good guy, but he thinks he's being helpful.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's offering a ride, and he thinks he's nice, and he thinks he deserves a phone number for being a nice guy. But the truth is, from the very first moment, he misrepresents himself just enough to exercise power over another person. Yeah. So he's actually horrible.
But the people who exercise power a lot of times don't see it that way. They just think they're they think they're in a position where I'm helping you doing this, so I'm not really, or they don't see how it's such a minor little thing. Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm just.
Yeah. They all think they're good people. They really do. All the monsters think they're good, which is backed up by all the horrible documentaries on HBO these days. All right. So when you and we've really this is such a great film. See, it's proof it's a great film, no matter what you say about it, because how many films can inspire like hours and hours of discussion? Like, you could have dinner parties at your house now that COVID's almost over, and show the film and then talk about it for the next 2 hours. But so you and your husband decide, okay, we're going to make it. We can make it. We're still going to be able to afford our home and food and all that, and still make this film. Yeah. So you decide to make it. And then at that point, was it a quick process?
Yeah, for the most part, yes. I mean, once we just hit the ground running, it was all logistics, and that is the easy part for me. Just getting people on board. We got a lot of good friends and filmmakers we have a network of people who are just super talented, and you just call them and they're like, we'll be there. You just let us know when, and we'll make it happen. So it was fairly simple putting the crew together and getting the logistics. Jack actually pulled a lot of weight on the producing side. That was kind of his first producing experience, I think, and he had to step in and step up and take care of a lot of stuff that I would normally take care of as a producer, just so that I could focus on the creative side of things. So I appreciated that a lot.
And it shows because, the creative side is so good. I mean, it looks great. The performances are great. And you clearly, as director, you weren't burdened with, people can produce and direct at the same time and have it turn out all right, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder. And it pulls you off of the actors. It pulls you away from the artistic side of the technical team, of your cinematography and all that. So all the pieces came together great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And shooting on a process trailer in a car, was also a big learning experience for us, just kind of figuring out how to do this whole thing and directing while you're in the front of this process trailer on your little monitor. And
right, so you weren't hiding in the back seat. You were on the
we were
the car pulling them.
Yeah, and just how to communicate with your actors when you're not in the same space as them. It was a really, really special film, and we still refer to it just about, every week or so. It just comes up about whatever, for whatever reason, whether it's a part of the production that reminds us of something, or the subject matter, or the actors, or whatever it may be. But, yeah.
And you shot it here in the Valley. I believe I recognize the place at what's it in Magnolia?
Yeah, it was. It was
Foxfire or something.
Foxfire Room.
There you go. Yeah. I once had a youth. I remember meeting people there.
Yeah, they were great. They were really awesome. But yeah, Foxfire Room is and then the location that the house that we shot at, her house, was in Burbank. So it was all in the Valley. And it was all shot overnight. It was 3 night shoots, starting at like 5 p.m. all the way till 5 a.m.
Right. Like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday the equipment goes back.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Got it done. And then I assume it was a fun post experience, since you happened to be with an editor and whatnot.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, the post experience, it's always fun. I love post-production. Maybe I love it because I get to work with my husband, and he's super creative, and it's really nice to have somebody who has fresh eyes. And he was there obviously and knew everything that was going on, but his perspective is really unique, and he's not afraid to like move things around. So that I was very lucky to have him on my team, because he was able to almost rebuild the story in post. Like, there were moments that he discovered in the footage that I didn't see. Or he would juxtapose, a look here with one of his looks with one of her looks, and sort of like creates longer space sometimes, a more awkward space between them. And that I thought was genius. I mean, we created a lot of the tension, and all of the actors did an amazing job. Some of the moments that are very tense in the film and very awkward, we created that in post-production. We added that extra breath, or that look, or that, I think editing is so important. Having a good editor is just like, wow.
Editing is an art form of its own, and you're pointing out exactly how that works. And yeah, when people edit themselves, they often come up with something great, but there might have been something else that was just never noticed.
Yeah. And the pacing of a film, I think, is really important. The pacing of a scene. Music, like you said, and my husband is, he also helped with composing. I don't know if he has a composing credit in there. He should, but he worked with one of our good friends, Stephen Lukács. He's the composer. They worked together to create that unique sound for the film, because that also to me is super important. It's like how the music
actually establishes the tone.
Story.
Yeah, the tone and the mood, it's right there.
Yeah. So
cool. So you finish it up in a non-pandemic world, and you have did you have a good little festival experience? Did you get to travel around a bit?
I did. Honestly, it went to a few festivals. I have to say that I didn't do as much traveling around with it as I thought I would. And that in part is because I don't think I submitted it to enough festivals. And the name of the game is
You're
submit.
Working the whole time, right?
And I'm working the whole time. And, but the festivals that it went to, it had a great response. And, that was enough for me. And then of course now it's in your series, which is super exciting. And, yeah, I mean, that's the whole point is, right, take your film out and have conversations about it. And I did for the most part. But with me, I guess it's like once the film is made, and it's out there, I'm like, on to the next thing. What is next? What can we do? And by the time I finish the film, I'm so over the subject matter that I can't even talk about it anymore. It's just like, what? I don't know what to say, and maybe I don't know what that means. I think it's just because I'm so intensely in it for so long. I can't imagine when people make feature length films, that was just a short film. So when you're making a feature that it just takes so much out of you, and by the time it was done and it was sent to festivals, by the time it was getting accepted, it was exciting, but I was just on to the next thing. All
right. So what was the next thing?
Well, so many things. So my husband and I, we're doing a lot of we're developing, TV shows. We have some feature length film scripts in not pre-production, but in development. The most recent thing that I just did, again, during the pandemic, but in June of 2021 of this year, I directed a short film called Blue Moon. And that we just wrapped that up. We just finished it, and it's out into festivals right now. It's submitted. So hopefully that'll that'll travel, and it'll go farther than Sweetheart went. But that was the most recent thing that I did. I also produced a feature length film over the summer with, a bunch of other people, with a lot of really talented filmmakers. So those are the two most recent projects that I did. So I had a busy summer.
And Blue Moon is something that you wrote or co-wrote?
I didn't, actually.
Oh, you did not?
I did not write. And it was really fun to work on something that I did not write. It was written by two women, Taylor Lewis and Alex Franca. They're both actresses who play the two lead roles in the film. And it's a story about a family that is dealing with a family member or their mother who has Alzheimer's, in the late stages of Alzheimer's. So it's a heavy story, drama. I love drama. And it was really fun to work on something that I didn't write, because I was actually able to workshop the script with the writers, but be the outside perspective and have a lot of valuable input in terms of storytelling and how to make the story, take the story to the next level. So that was really exciting for me.
And as director, was it more freeing to not have it be your own script? Yes,
it was 100% more freeing. I felt so much more confident. It was so much easier for me to see how things were going to work out, like what the problem areas were, where I needed more intensity, where I could let things breathe. I don't know what it is, but for me, just being a writer and then director, I'm sort of so in it that sometimes I have blind spots that I can't see, where being the director, hired on as a director, and sort of having just a different perspective on the story and the script was much easier for me.
Excellent. So growth all around.
Growth all around. And maybe I'm just a better director now. And so it was just easier for me to make decisions and to kind of see how I just got it. Like I had a vision for it. And luckily my vision for it aligned with the writer's vision. So that was also really rewarding. It was a rewarding process. And then the end product was also very rewarding for all of us. So, that was really, really a cool experience.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I guess we've made it up to the current day. We started with youth in Bulgaria, and now here you are, another film under your belt and taking it out on the circuit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I guess it's time for we'll stop this one. We'll stop the interview portion, and we'll restart again for everyone who's listening. The next episode of this podcast is going to be Diliana answering the 4 questions. And the 4 questions are fun because it's favorite films and underrated and overrated and whatnot. So you get to hear what films inspire this promising filmmaker. And before we wrap up, is there a website or anything you want to send people to, or social media if they're interested in you and Blue Moon and Sweetheart?
Oh, sure. Well, social media, I post on Gravina Films on Instagram. That's where I post. Let me see. Let me just make sure I've got the right.
Yeah, is there an underscore?
Probably. Clearly, I spend a long time on social media. Let me just check on my phone. But yes, and I have my personal website is thebadzebra.com.
That's a good name.
Yeah.
All right, thebadzebra.com.
Yeah, thebadzebra.com, and then Gravina, Gravina, like that's my family last name, _films, Gravina Films. That's my production company that I run with my husband. And so our Instagram account, we post new projects that we're working on.
Fantastic. Yeah, and nice to see a young couple making it work, personal and professional. I think it's very cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. And now I will run off. I'll go on my final closing spiel. We talked about Diliana's film Sweetheart. You should watch it. If you haven't watched it, watch it. And if you have, watch it again. Watch the Discover Indie Film TV series. That's on Amazon Prime Video. So just go to Prime Video any way you can. But it should be on a nice, big, beautiful TV that has some kind of smart TV app built into it so you can watch. Because this film was not, this film looks great. You don't want to watch it on your phone. So go to Prime Video and search for Discover Indie Film and go to Season 3, Episode 5 to watch Sweetheart. And the film that comes after it in that episode is called Girlfriend. They're both great. Sorry, I can't help you with it. I have no idea what is making my watch think I'm talking to it. Anyway, that's fun. And give this TV series 5 stars, why don't you? So anyone who's watching, go to Amazon.com and look up in the Prime Video section, look at Discover Indie Film and give, there's 4 seasons so far. You know, if you really want to be a kind person, give all 4 seasons 5 stars. Because oddly enough, if you don't give the series 5 stars, it's season-based. And if you want to learn about this podcast or the TV series that grew out of it, you can learn about it at discoverindiefilm.com. And its social media handle is @DIFwins. And by the way, I didn't beg for stars. If you're listening to this podcast, you should give it a nice review. Give it 5 stars. Give it a like, whatever it is. Like, subscribe, and something else. And we talked about the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. That's every November here in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley in the little town of Sherman Oaks. You can learn about it at ShermanOaksFF.com, and its social media is @ShermanOaksFF. And there is a sister festival every June, and that's Film Invasion Los Angeles. And you can learn about it if you go to FilmInvasionLA.com, and its social media is @FilmInvasionLA. Thank you, Diliana Deltcheva, for the interview. And thank you for your film being a part of the TV series. And thank you, anyone who listened to this.